What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video, and I'm really excited. I've got the three guys from Fireside Giants. They got a great channel over there. I was over on their channel like 2 weeks ago. We talked about the draft, and I thought we had a great conversation. And I figured I'd have them on now that the schedule's out. Talk about the schedule, maybe talk about some of the undrafted free agents, some of the training camp battles, things like that. But I figured we'd start with the schedule. And if you guys listen to Fireside Giants, it's going to be on their podcast. I'll let you guys further explain that, but they got a great channel over there. Make sure you go into the description below and subscribe to them. But Alex, go ahead. Just let everybody know about your podcast and everything.
Yeah, so we got a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, all the good stuff. And we're going to have Chris today kind of fill in as the main host here, do kind of a cool collaboration between the two channels and really, build a cool community, because that's really what it's all about, building this positive community with good people. And I'm trying to stay away from the hostility. There's a lot of it going on now. And, with quarantine, it's easy to get angry at people for no reason. But, I love
Brandon Marshall
with everybody. Exactly. Brandon Marshall's trying to take shots at us again. And we'll talk about that, too. But thanks, Chris, for having us on. I'm really excited to talk about, the release of the schedule and everything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, going in, I think we all knew it was going to be a tough schedule. We knew we were going to be playing the North, the AFC North, the NFC West. We had the Bucs who just added Tom Brady. So we knew it was going to be a tough schedule. We just wanted to know the order. We wanted to know when we were going to be playing the games, primetime games, things of that nature. I was a little bummed out. We didn't get the Cleveland Browns on primetime. I was looking forward to seeing that, potentially going to that game. I still might. We'll see. But, yeah, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the schedule. I guess I'll start with Mike. What did you think of let's start with, the first 4 or 5 games before we get into the divisional matchup. How do you think the schedule starts over the first quarter of the season?
Oof. All right. Well, it's a tough one. So I honestly was confused with the Rams and Chargers logo. So now I know it's the Rams. So I guess that's kind of worse, I guess. The Rams are, they were in the Super Bowl a year and a half ago. So we can't really sleep on that team. But it is a tough schedule. The most winnable game here in my mind is probably at the Bears. And even that's a very tough game. We lost there last year, I believe, by 10 points or so.
Chase Daniel.
So that's a tough matchup. Yeah, against Chase Daniel probably. Was it Chase Daniel? No, that was Trubisky. But 2 years ago was Chase Daniel. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, we won that one.
Yeah, that one we won at home. Yeah. So played them 3 years in a row, I guess. It's crazy. But, yeah, it'll be a tough opening for sure. I mean, I don't want to be the pessimistic guy. If they start out 0-4, I would not be too shocked about it. I hope they can squeeze one out here somehow. But it is a very, very tough way. All very good defenses as well to start the season. Definitely a tough task for Joe Judge to start off his coaching career.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, whoever wants to go next, go ahead.
You go, Anthony.
I think those first 5 games are all against potential playoff teams, and it's going to be really tough. And I'm pretty upset that we have to wait until Monday night to watch our team play. Sunday night was tough enough when we would play the Cowboys, and I'd have to wait all day, watch all these games, and then watch us play on Sunday night. I wish that it was the 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock game, but the fact that we got to wait a whole extra day and then watch our Giants play on Monday night, that kind of sucks to me. I'm not really too excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think they've played the Steelers since 1966 in the first week of the season.
Wow.
Something crazy. It's been a really long time. And, I was watching, Adam Schefter say the other day, or rather it was yesterday, that they kind of set up this contingency plan in case the coronavirus does affect the season. So, they're playing Dallas in week 5. And the idea here is if, for whatever reason, the NFL season is, stalled or suspended for a few weeks, it's possible that they could reopen on that week 5 day for the Giants to play the Cowboys like it normally would. But it seems to me like they're setting up these first 4 games to be the lowest viewership games. Cause I know, they're all non-division games and they'll probably get the most views during those division rivalry matchups. So they're probably, kind of steering towards these non-division games so that way they can get the low viewership games out of the way. That way they can maximize the more profitable ones afterwards. But that being said, these are not easy teams. The 49ers are a Super Bowl caliber team. They gained Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, incredible wide receiver. So their offense is going to be potent. And then the Steelers obviously are always good. Big Ben's going to be back, which is going to be interesting. I don't really know what to think. Do you guys think that Ben Roethlisberger comes back and actually has a good year? I mean, he missed all of 2019.
That's a great question. To me, I don't think he could have a great season, but even if he could get back to average form, I think the Steelers could make the playoffs. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Steelers because they still have a good offensive line. They still have a good defense. It's going to come down to Ben. It's going to come down to whether Ben and Juju Smith have that chemistry again. But I do think that first week, and I knew nothing about that stat that you brought up, 1966. I think it's an interesting matchup. I kind of agree with Anthony. I don't like the fact that we got to wait till Monday, watch everybody else play. The good thing is, I guess we know how the Cowboys, Eagles, Redskins do leading up into the game. But yeah, I hate having to wait till Monday, 7:15. But I am excited about the game. Steelers, Monday Night Football, Joe Judge. You play this team once every 4 years. I think it's an intriguing matchup, and I was glad it wasn't the Cowboys for once. We play them first week every year for the last decade. But I think it's a game we could win. And I think Mike said that he thought the Bears were the most winnable game. I actually think the Steelers are the most winnable game because it's at home. And I think they're about the same. I think the Steelers and Bears game are about the same. I think we have a legitimate chance to win both. I probably wouldn't pick us in either, if I'm being completely honest. But I think we'll split. I think we'll win one of the two. I think we'll start out 1-1. The Niners game, we're not winning. I mean, the Niners to me, that's the toughest game on our schedule outside of the Ravens game, which we'll get to at the end of the schedule. The Niners are great. They got a great head coach. They're a run-first football team. I'm intrigued by the game to see how we match up because it's at home. Yeah. Maybe we could keep it close. Absolutely. And I was talking to Bad Dog last night, and he said maybe it could be one of those games where going in you're going to lose, but if you can keep up with that team, maybe it springboards you to playing better down the stretch. And the Rams, who knows what we got there? You're traveling to L.A., but the Rams lost a lot. I mean, to me, that's a beatable team. So if we could find a way, and I'm not saying we're going to start 2-2 there and get into the part of our schedule where we play 5 divisional games over a 6-game stretch, at least it gives us some hope. If we could somehow win 3 of those 5 divisional games, which is going to be a challenge in itself, that maybe we do have something to root for the last month of the season. So the first 4 games are imperative. They have to find a way to squeeze out 2 wins there. And I think the most realistic ones are probably the first 2 games. Maybe you steal the Rams game. You're not beating the 49ers.
Yeah, no, I
agree.
would
sign up for 2-2 right now. I would absolutely. Take that, honestly, with these teams, yeah.
I would take 2-2 any day of the week. And like looking at the Steelers, Big Ben's coming in without Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, the 2 guys that he relied on the most. So he really doesn't have that full chemistry with James Conner at all. And Juju is, a year, on the bench, for Big Ben and his shoulder problems. Like how much can we actually rely on a player like that? If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and expect him to come out and look at the Giants, they're coming in. Joe Judge is like, we're winning this game. This is my first game as head coach. We have to win this game. I expect them to come out in full force and actually put up a good game, some good numbers, just to, at least like make it look good. And like you said, Chris, just competing is the big point here, especially against the 49ers and stuff like that.
Yeah. And another interesting point I wanted to bring up about the first 4 games in particular, first 5 games. One thing that I'm worried about going into the season, I'm curious to get your guys' take on this, is the new offense with Daniel Jones, learning the new offense. He's got Jason Garrett, second playbook in 2 years. I think he'll be able to do it. He's smart. He's hardworking. I think it'll get done. But maybe there's a little bit of a speed bump early on in the year, especially with the way things are right now. You don't have the traditional offseason. He's going up against 4 really good defenses right out of the gate. The Rams, the Niners, the Bears, and the Steelers all have a really good defense. So you couple that with the fact that he's learning a new playbook. He had a short offseason to begin with. It's going to be a huge challenge for both Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones right out of the gate, first 4 games.
Yeah, you look at these teams, they have multiple good pass rushers on these teams. So honestly, I'm happy we have Andrew Thomas now and a much better offensive line. He will be put to the test right away. So, I mean, TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, and then you go to the Bears and Khalil Mack and all those guys. And the Niners, of course, have this great pass rush. The Rams, I mean, they probably lost some guys over the years, but Aaron Donald's still there, of course. And I think they have Terrell Lewis from Alabama, who I love. So there are people on that team you have to watch out for. And the offensive line has to play at a very high level. And if they can do that, and especially run the ball successfully in these first 4 games and control the clock and keep their defense off the field, I do think they're somewhat winnable. I don't want to go out there and say they're definitely going to go 0-4. I hold the Steelers on a higher level than you guys probably. I do think they're a dark horse Super Bowl type team. You look at their defense, secondary is phenomenal. They have really athletic linebackers, guys that can get to the quarterback. And if Ben Roethlisberger's back to playing like the old Ben Roethlisberger, this is a Super Bowl contender team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. If Ben Roethlisberger is the old Ben Roethlisberger, like a top 10 or 12 quarterback, I agree that they could at least compete to make the Super Bowl. I'll agree with that. But go ahead. I want to get your guys' thoughts in terms of the defenses going against Daniel Jones first 4 weeks and how that'll translate.
Anthony, you go ahead.
I think it's going to be really tough for him, especially because of the somewhat shortened offseason, the fact that they're not all able to go into New Jersey and work together on implementing the offense yet. I think it's going to be tough for him, but I also want to quickly just be a little bit more of the optimistic guy here with that 49ers matchup. Usually the team that loses the Super Bowl has a really bad season to follow, so maybe we can get lucky that the 49ers get out to a slow start to start the season, and we meet them at home in Week 3, and maybe that is a somewhat winnable game there.
You never know.
Definitely.
You never know.
Yeah, I mean, back to the defense, though. Actually was just having an argument with someone on Twitter about this. I want to get your guys' opinion on this. So, we have Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett coming in. So I can't imagine the Giants, when they went to go hire Jason Garrett, they were like, okay, Jason, that shitty offense? Sorry for my language. You could probably edit that out. that terrible offense
No, it's okay.
that they brought in, that terrible offense that they had 5 years ago at Dallas. Why don't you come and bring that to New York? That's what we want. Instead of saying, why don't we bring some of those tendencies from Kellen Moore's offense in 2019, number one passing attack from Dallas, bring some of those plays, those tendencies, those groupings and personnel. Why don't we bring that over and implement that on the Giants? And then building this offensive line, we're seeing exactly that. That's a big part of having a high functioning offense and having good wide receivers, good tight ends, and everything, playing at high speed and at a fundamentalistic level. So my question to you is, do you think that bringing Cooper Rush, that backup quarterback from Dallas, do you think that he's going to help Daniel Jones adapt and learn the playbook that Garrett is probably taking a bit of Kellen Moore, his style? Do you think that, Rush is a good signing in terms of that type of value? And do you think they're going to be using more of a blend of Kellen Moore's offense than Jason Garrett's one from 5 years ago?
Great question. In terms of Rush, I laugh about Twitter. Twitter's a very toxic place. And as soon as the Giants signed Rush, everybody's bashing them. They're like, Rush was a good signing. Rush is a guy that's familiar with Jason Garrett. He knows the system. You have a quarterback in Daniel Jones learning a new playbook who's not going to have a normal offseason. I don't know if Rush is going to make the team or not, but at bare minimum, at least you're bringing in a guy with some familiarity that may be able to help Daniel Jones out along in the process. So to me, that was the reason for the signing. I don't know whether he's going to make the team or not. But, and then in terms of the, what type of offense I think the New York Giants are going to run, it's hard for me to pin what type of offense I think the New York Giants are going to run. Like Joe Judge has said this entire process, I think it's going to be based on the opponent. I think on certain weeks, kind of like the Patriots, on certain weeks, that's why I never pick anybody with the New England Patriots in fantasy. You don't know who's going to score the touchdowns on a week-in, week-out basis. And I think it's going to be very similar with the Giants. I think if the Giants see a team that they think they could run the ball on 40, 45 times in a game, they're going to do it. I think at the end of the day, I think that's their core principle. I think that's what they want to build the team around. They got Saquon Barkley. They've improved the line. I think they want to run to set up the pass. But there's going to be games like against the Eagles, for example. The Eagles have a very good interior defensive line. They're going to have to open it up and throw on that football team. They're weak in the secondary. That's where I think you'll attack them. So I think it's going to be – I don't think they're going to be a type of offense. I think it's going to be based on their opponent more so than anything.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Point.
I mean, that's a good point. And like looking back at Pat Shermer, what he did – they did not do that. It was very much not that, because I remember last season seeing Saquon Barkley, I think he dominated one game against the Eagles the first half. As a receiver though, it wasn't as a runner. He was catching balls and having a really good game. And then and then Shermer just completely took him out of the game, completely just phased him out. And it was like, wait a second, you just took out, basically just schemed out our best player who was dominating in the first half. We saw that too frequently, just things that didn't make sense as fans. We're watching this and okay, even we understand that this is wrong. So I hopefully, Jason Garrett can come in here and really just build on the success in game. I'm tired of these in-game mistakes. That's really my point here.
Yeah, and you even go back to the Eagles game the year before that when I think Saquon ran on them for 100 yards in the first half, and then they only ran the ball 4 times in the second half.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Pat Shermer was never consistent as a head coach, and I think Joe Judge will bring that. But if it makes sense, he's going to be inconsistent, but in a consistent way. If that makes sense.
Right.
I like
sense.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, all right.
But
go ahead.
back to the Cooper Rush and Alex, or I was going to say Cooper Rush and Alex Tanney will probably compete for that third and final quarterback spot. But I do think it might be Tanney at the odd man out because that was kind of a Pat Shermer type thing. I know they brought him back with Gettleman and Judge, which I kind of found weird. I thought they'd move on from Tanney and they like him in the film room and all that stuff. But if you have Cooper Rush now who understands Jason Garrett's offense even better, I don't really see the point of having Alex Tanney. You have Daniel Jones, you have Colt McCoy. Is there really a point of carrying 4 quarterbacks? You're not going to use Alex Tanney as it's a guy in the Saints Taysom Hill type role. You know what I mean? So there's no point in taking 4 quarterbacks.
Imagine
here,
that.
You know what I mean? But yeah, probably not going to go well
now.
for them.
What is Jason Garrett doing? Tanney's a tight end.
Speaking of tight ends, actually, I do think they'll use some more 2 tight end sets on this team. I know back to Ben McAdoo and even Pat Shurmur, they use a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and stuff like that. I think we'll see more 2 wide receiver sets with 2 tight ends. I know the Giants now have Caden Smith, healthy Ingram, hopefully, and then Levine Toilolo behind those guys. So hopefully there's more 2 tight end sets. I think you got to play to your personnel, and just, I think Joe Judge talked about that, the round peg and the square hole thing. Like, you want to play to the guys you have on your team, and what do you think will be the most successful type offense?
Yeah. A great point you bring up about the 2 tight end set. I completely agree with that. But go ahead, Anthony. Let me get your take.
Yeah, I want to actually say that I kind of disagree with you on Alex Tanney. I think that he's not really a Pat Shurmur signing at this point. I think that he's almost a Daniel Jones signing, because Daniel Jones, him and Daniel Jones are really good friends, and he really likes working with him. And if Daniel Jones is happy, then I'm happy. If Daniel Jones wants that guy in the quarterback room, then I want that guy in the quarterback room. And
he also wants a cheeseburger, and he wants you to deliver it.
Okay. I also like the Cooper Rush signing. I think I know Des Bryant has come out in huge support of him in the past. Thinks that he's a really great player and can be a competent quarterback in the league. And I do have a friend who's a Cowboys fan, and he loves Cooper Rush for some reason. Has always said he's a great backup. So I thought that was a great signing. I agree, Twitter's a toxic place. I don't know why people were upset over that. To me, the ideal quarterback room is Daniel Jones, Alex Tanney, and Cooper Rush. I used to be one of those guys that's why is Alex Tanney still on this team? But after hearing all the things that Daniel Jones has had to say about him, I'm in complete support of keeping Alex Tanney on this roster.
Do you guys think they'll go with 3 quarterbacks? A lot of times teams will go with 2. Do you think it's a given they're going to go with 3 quarterbacks?
I think so, because Daniel Jones is only in his 2nd season. Yeah. So I think you want as many guys in that room as you can just to help him out.
Yeah.
I think that they will up until a certain point. I think it'll be one of the final cuts, just because they have other positions that are way weaker than the quarterback position, in my opinion. They need help at linebacker, some more depth in the secondary. They can't be wasting, an extra roster spot when their defense is so thin at certain positions, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no to that. I know you guys said yes, I think, but I'm going to say no, because I think Joe Judge wants to use every single roster spot wisely. I think everyone has a role on this team, and if he can bring in an extra linebacker to play a special teams type role, he's going to use that over a 3rd quarterback. So it's been the way the Giants have done things in recent years, is having 3 quarterbacks, but I do think with this new regime and stuff like that, new head coach, I can see them going 2 quarterbacks. It does make more sense in my mind.
Yeah, I personally would prefer 2 quarterbacks. I don't know if they're going to do that because, like you said, in recent history, they haven't. But even if Rush doesn't make the team, I still think he holds some value.
Just practice squad it.
Yeah, practice squad.
Who's gonna pick him up?
Yeah, and he'll help Daniel Jones. He'll help Daniel Jones
exactly
with the new system. But I want to get off. We had a great conversation. But I want to get to the next 4 games. Next 4 games we got coming up. Now we start with the division. We got the Dallas Cowboys.
Oof,
we've got who do we play weeks? I don't have the schedule in front of me. I know we got the Cowboys,
Washington, Philadelphia, Tampa.
Okay.
That's a tough 4 games.
Tough four games. And we'll start with you, Alex. Let's get your take on that, on those next 4 games, each individual game. Let me get your take.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm just going to go through each one quickly. Dallas away is never easy, especially in Jerry World. I would love for there to be no fans there. Alternatively, I would love for there to be fans there, because that means we're done with this and then, society's back to normal. But playing in Dallas is never easy. They have CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. That's terrifying, especially for a secondary doesn't have much experience together. So I'm scared about that. I think that they're going to lose that game personally. Washington, I just want to see Dwayne Haskins fail. Based on how he looks at Daniel Jones. I posted a picture on Twitter today, and he looked at Daniel like he was like, you know what? I'll never forget Haskins' face when he was drafted by Washington. He just looked like he was so depressed.
Yeah.
And then he immediately started a company with his dad for entertainment. I was like, wow, okay. I'm happy we passed on him, actually. But I think Washington is a home game. I think we'll pull out a win there. Philadelphia away, never easy. Joe Judge is intro to nasty, hasty Eagles fans throwing stuff at him. Eli's family never showed up at the Eagles games anymore towards the end of his career because they would harass us. Like there's 10-year-olds flipping you off. That's crazy. So, avoid that. But, Joe Judge is going to go in there and if he pulls out a win against the Eagles away in his first season, I'll be pretty excited about that. And then you go to Tampa Bay where they're the biggest question mark in the entire league right now. Like, is Tom Brady and Gronkowski going to be good in their first year? And everyone's like, Tom Brady's a system quarterback and Bruce Arians, runs a different kind of style. What's going to happen there? They don't have those, James White type of guys. I think they have, what's his name?
Ronald Jones.
Who's their running back? Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
He's actually not bad.
They still got Burkhead over there too.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
On New England, I think.
Oh, I do. Oh, why am I thinking?
think
I'm thinking New England because we're talking Brady. I still got to get
not
used
sunk
to.
in yet.
Yeah, I still got to get used to the change. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I don't know. I think I can't really predict that game. It's really hard for me to predict it based on, having a lack of knowledge on what they're going to do there. But I think it's going to be a tough one, especially against Tom Brady. It always is.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. I'll give my thoughts on that game, but I want to get. Let's go with Anthony. Give me your thoughts on the next 4 games.
So I think obviously the 3 divisional games in a row is going to be a really tough stretch for us. And what I'm really unhappy about is that it's a Thursday night on the road in Philadelphia. It seems like every time we've got those primetime games against the Eagles and they wear their black uniforms, we just get kicked we get blown out pretty much. But I am excited for that Buccaneers game, that Monday night game, because I saw somebody bring this up on Twitter that would be the perfect game to introduce Eli Manning into the Ring of Honor. Because it's against Tom Brady. It's a Monday night primetime game. Everybody's going to be watching. Yeah, I think that's a perfect time to do it. So hopefully we've got fans in the stadiums by then, and maybe I can fly from Florida up to Jersey and go to that one. If Eli's getting inducted, I think I'm going to try to. So that's what I'm looking forward to. The Bucs are a big question mark, though. I don't know, Brady, Gronk, I think they're going to be good, man. I don't know. I think Bruce Arians is going to get them together. It's going to be I just think the first 8 games are all really tough. I think all of the games on the schedule are tough. It's going to be a tough season, man.
It's a tough schedule, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Mike.
All right, so we started Dallas. I think Dallas's offense is close to impossible to stop at this point with their offensive line, these receivers they have now. Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott played at a pretty high level last year. But on defense, their secondary, they lost Byron Jones. I don't really know who their cornerback one is. Is it Awuzie, like their cornerback one? I have no idea. So they can attack them through the air for sure. So I think Dallas in a high-scoring game might be beatable. So I'm not going to chalk that up as an L yet. And, of course, home against the Redskins is probably the easiest game all year unless the Bengals are trash in Week 12. But probably the Redskins at home is the easiest one. We beat them last year. The Jabril Peppers pick 6 game. I think they can beat them again, hopefully, unless Chase Young has 4 sacks or something crazy. And at the Eagles, it's always a tough one. I think, it's a Thursday night game, correct?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yep.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So we played them in 2016 on Thursday night. We lost that game, and that was during the Giants' good season. So
2018
I don't really
too.
expect to go
We
into
played
Philly.
them on Thursday.
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah.
That was at home, I think. Yeah, but still, we never beat them, it seems like, on Thursday night. So I'm not too optimistic about that one. And the Buccaneers, I think, are pretty close to a complete team. I have high hopes for them. I think that's an 11-12 win type team. I'm not sure about their offensive line. They have good guards, but their tackles, Tristan Wirfs is a rookie. I forget who their left tackle is, but there's some question marks there. So if they can get to Brady, just like in the 2 Super Bowl games, they can probably, throw him off his game and maybe find a way to beat the Buccaneers. But once again, they'll put up a lot of points on us probably. It'll be a tough one to win. But I do think they can probably go 2-2, maybe even 3-1 during this 4-game stretch.
3-1. I like the optimism. I would say 2-2.
Wow.
Much like I said, the first 4, I think 2-2 is possible because I do think you have that game in there, the Redskins, that we should win. And if we want any hope this year, we got to sweep the Redskins. And the same thing if you're a Redskin fan, you got to sweep the Giants. But Giants got to sweep the Redskins if they want any hope this year. So that's absolutely a must-win game. Cowboys are going to be tough on the road, like you said, like all you guys said, potent offense. DeAndre Baker's going to be put to the test, going up against CeeDee Lamb more than likely. We'll see what they do with James Bradbury, going up against Cooper and everything else. But they got a ton of weapons. The one thing I'll say about the Cowboys that I at least have a little bit of hope for, I don't know who they're going to start at center, at least on the offensive end. Tyler Biadasz maybe. Travis Frederick's gone. The Giants' strength, or one of their strengths on the defense, is the interior part of that line. Maybe that's an advantage for them. Maybe they could collapse the pocket and make the Cowboys one-dimensional. But even if you make them one-dimensional, they're not going to be easy to defend. But maybe you could get Dak into third and long situations and make it a game in that way. The defense, I agree with Mike. I think we're going to be able to throw on them. I don't love their secondary. And I think we'll be able to move the ball on them. For us to have any chance in that game, we're going to have to win the time possession by at least 5 or 6 minutes, and we cannot turn the football over. You got to keep that offense off the field. The Eagles game, you know what? At the end of the day, I've come to the conclusion the Giants could be 3 times as good as the Eagles one year, and they're still going to lose. We find ways to lose to that team no matter what. We could be up by 20 points, and we've seen it. We've lost with like 10 minutes to go. So, I never go in confident against the Eagles, regardless of how good or bad the Giants are. And it's in Philadelphia. I'll believe it when I see it. I do think the Eagles are beatable this year, but I still think they're better than us. And it being on the road, I think obviously our better chances when they come here. The one silver lining I'll say about the Bucs game, right now at least, we don't know what the teams are going to look like week 8. And I'm by no means am I picking the Giants to beat the Bucs. We have 4 extra days to prepare because we're playing on Thursday night. We play the Bucs on a Monday night. So we have 4 extra days to prepare. It's almost like a half of a bye week to prepare for the Tampa Bay Bucs. Judge is somewhat familiar with Brady. I'm trying to come up with positives, but it will not be easy. If I was the Giants, though, I know a lot of people have talked about the ring ceremony for Eli Manning on that day. I wouldn't do it because I don't want to piss Brady off. I don't want to give Brady any more extra incentive. I'd rather do it the first game of the year. That's just me thinking from a win standpoint, but that's just me. That's my take on it. But yeah, I think all 4 games are incredibly tough. I think 1-3 is probably realistic. 2-2 is possible over those second slate of games.
I have a question for you guys. Why did Dallas sign Andy Dalton? And the reason I'm asking that is because I saw a report that said that their Dak, wants a lot of money. We're talking $40 million a season for a guy who really wouldn't be that great if his offensive line wasn't a brick wall. You know what I mean? He can run, but when he's under pressure, he kind of loses it a little bit. So the reason I heard was that they actually are having, a bit of issues, coming across, and negotiating to the reasonable price point. And Dallas does not want to pay him $40 million. That means Jerry Jones giving up his $250 million yacht, right? So now we're in a position like, okay, what happens if Dak doesn't get his deal? And they have to rely on Andy Dalton in 2020. That would be a very Dallas thing to happen. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's a great question.
They could franchise him twice, right? I mean, they franchised him this year. They could do it.
He might just not play though.
I think Andy Dalton's actually from Dallas, I heard. So that's probably the main reason as to why during this whole pandemic thing, you don't want to be too far from home. And I think it's just a good contract for the Cowboys. Like if I could sign Andy Dalton, I know we have Daniel Jones, but if we can sign him for 1 year, $4 million, $7 million incentives, that's a good deal for Andy Dalton. He's, not a playoff performer, but in the regular season, the guy has good numbers and stuff like that. So I'd be fine with that. I think it's pretty. Yeah, I know.
Why would he sign an incentive-based deal if he's not going to play?
You want my thought process on this? You want my thought process on this? Andy Dalton, in my opinion, first off, the Cowboys' line of thinking is this, in my opinion. They're using Dalton as leverage because Dak Prescott, if he has a brain, knows he can't hold out now. Because I do think with the team that Dallas has, with the weapons and everything else, Andy Dalton can win with that football team. I'm not saying win a Super Bowl. Yeah. He can win games. He can make the playoffs with that team. And then the narrative...
Any quarterback should be able to.
Yeah. And then the narrative would be if Dak sat out, well, Dak, you went 8-8 with a similar team the year before. Mm-hmm. Andy Dalton came in, he won 10, 11 games. You're not worth it. We're going to let you walk.
Right.
And he can't risk that. So I think they're using it as leverage to make Dak play on the franchise tag. But my line of thinking as far as Andy Dalton goes, you guys are asking why would he sign an incentive? Andy Dalton, the politically correct thing that Dallas is trying to say because they don't want any headlines and controversy and panic is that he came from Dallas. But my line of thinking is this, much like with Teddy Bridgewater when he signed with the Saints, I think Andy Dalton looks at it like this. If Dak ever got hurt or if Dak ever held out, I could step in for 4 or 5 games, play really well like Teddy Bridgewater did. Teddy Bridgewater had a great offensive line, great weapons. And Teddy Bridgewater got a $63 million contract because of it. Yeah. So Andy Dalton looks at it like Dallas is the best situation possibly to go to. They got more weapons than anybody. They got an offensive line. If Dak ever gets hurt or if they start 0-3 and Dak's playing really bad, I could step in for 3 or 4 games and get a big contract the following year. That's my honest opinion why Dalton's on there.
Maybe. It's definitely possible. I'm just thinking like they could be thinking that Dak might not play the first few weeks because if I'm Andy Dalton, I mean, then again, you could say the same thing. Like you could compare it to Cam Newton. Like, why would you sign Andy Dalton over Cam Newton? So I see what you're saying. It makes sense that he would take a backup deal that's probably guaranteed around $3 or $4 million just to sit on the bench and hang out. Worst case scenario, but best case scenario, he makes $7 million in incentives and he gets a big deal the next year.
Yeah.
So I get that makes sense to me. I could see that.
Not necessarily with Dallas.
Yeah.
Teddy signed with the Panthers. And then the other thing you got to look at is what teams are going to offer him a deal. Like, to me, his best opportunity was maybe to come in as a mentor with a rookie quarterback. Say Fitzpatrick wasn't with the Dolphins or, the Jaguars maybe. But I don't think he was going to be Chargers. Yeah, that's a good one. But they have, what's his name? The guy that was from the Bills. Tyrod Taylor. Yeah. But I do think he maybe could have gotten a deal like that where he would have competed with a rookie or been a mentor. But I don't think he was getting a definite starter. So if I'm thinking from a financial standpoint, if I'm Dalton, I'd rather go to a team where I can, first off, like you guys have said, he's happy in Dallas. But I'd rather go to a team where I know if I'm asked to play, I'm going to succeed. Much like I did early in my career with the Bengals. And then I'm going to get a contract out of it. So that's my line.
Yeah, Jameis Winston.
And they have such a good team.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly what Jameis Winston did. Yeah.
And if Dalton takes over, he's not just taking over a random team. He's taking over an offense with one of the best lines in the league, two of the best wide receivers in the league, and and Blake Jarwin, who's a pretty capable tight end.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's taking over the Jags or he's not taking over a worse offense. He's taking over the number one passing attack in 2019, which sets him up pretty damn well to cash in if he gets some playing time.
Yeah, that's my line of thinking for both the Cowboys and Dalton's perspective. I think the Cowboys are using it for leverage to force Dak to play on the franchise tag. But that's just me. What about you, Anthony? What do you think?
I think Jerry Jones is really good at moving on from players right at the perfect time, and this could potentially be one of those situations. I don't necessarily think it will be, but remind me who the running back that he traded away a long time ago was. I think it was Herschel Walker.
That really
right?
Go back to 90, yeah.
Yeah, he was like the best running back in the league. No one thought that he should have been traded, but he traded him, and then he was really bad on the Vikings. He traded him at the perfect time and got like a haul of draft picks and completely turned the team around. And then obviously he let Des Bryant go early. Des Bryant couldn't really get back in the league after that, even though he was still, in most people's eyes, in his prime. And Jerry Jones is really good at that. DeMarco Murray, exactly. Another perfect example.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones is really good at that, moving on from players at the right time and getting as much value as he possibly can from them. So maybe he could potentially be setting himself up to move on from Dak Prescott, get a few first-round picks in a trade, and then have Andy Dalton play for a year, then find their quarterback with one of those extra first-round picks. It's possible, it's unlikely, but it is what Jerry Jones is good at, so I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I don't think they're fully committed to Dak. I'll say that. If they were, they would have paid him his 5-year deal already, like the Eagles did with Wentz and who's the other Goff with the Rams. So I don't think they're fully committed to him yet. But let's get back to the schedule. We talked about the Cowboys enough. Next 4 games. Now we've played 3 divisional games. We're coming off the Buck game. We've got I know we got the Redskins over that next 4. We've got a bye. The Eagles, right? Yeah, Eagles. Who do we play after the bye? The Bengals.
Bye week
Bengals,
Seahawks. Okay, go ahead. We'll start with Anthony this time. Give me your thoughts on the next 4.
Well, 2 more divisional games. Obviously, like you said, we've got to sweep the Redskins, so that's going to be important. And then we've got the Eagles at home, which should be a lot more winnable than on the road on a Thursday night. And it's a late bye week this year, which I usually like because you can kind of reset and then get ready for that final stretch. So I'm happy about that. But then obviously we're on the road against Cincinnati and on the road against Seattle. Cincinnati's probably the most winnable game on our schedule if you compare last year's teams. But obviously Seattle, I think they're like a Super Bowl contender every year, so that one's going to be tough, especially on the road. That could get ugly depending on how the weather is in December too. But I'm looking forward to that Bengals game though, because I'm a really big fan of Joe Burrow. I love watching him play, so it's going to be fun to see him and Daniel Jones go against each other later in the season. Hopefully, when they're both in a rhythm and playing at their best. So that's going to be an exciting game.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, go ahead.
So at the Redskins, the past couple of years, they've put up a lot of points on them. I know that was the game where Barkley went off in 2018. Last year was the overtime victory. So I think they'll be able to put up points against Washington, hopefully stop them when they're on offense. Then the Eagles game at home, it's a lot easier at home. I mean, we don't beat them usually at home either, but at least we keep it close against the Eagles at home. And then the bye week, as you said, is a good time. I like the week 11, week 12 bye week in that area. I think it's a good time. As you said, there's reset things. And if you're going to be a playoff team, I think week 11, week 12, even week 13 will be a perfect time. Not saying the Giants are a playoff team, but if they do have those aspirations, it is a good time for a bye. Then you're at the Bengals. I remember we played at Cincinnati in like 2010, I think it was, 2011, whenever it was. And they got their doors blown off, basically. It was a rough game to watch. I think I turned it off in the third quarter. That was a long time ago, but still, I have good memories in Cincinnati. But yeah, that team's going to be interesting. They have some good offensive options. T. Higgins, healthy A.J. Green, maybe. Of course, Joe Burrow. Their defense is a mess, honestly, and their offensive line's still a mess. So that's a beatable team for sure. And then you have week 13 at Seattle. As long as that team has Russell Wilson, I always think they're going to fall off year after year. But as long as they have Russell Wilson and him being efficient and all that stuff, a good running game as well, a pretty good offensive line in terms of run blocking, and Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf down the field, they're also tough to beat, especially in Seattle. That's a game with no fans. That would be much, much easier. But I think by then we'll probably have fans in stadiums. So
you stole my point.
The Giants for sure. I'm sorry.
You stole my point. I was going to say that. No, it's a great point. Because that historically is the hardest place to play in football, and maybe the Giants, if there's no fans there, they would take away that advantage. Great point, Mike.
Yeah, I think they can go maybe 3-1 if they beat the Eagles in this stretch. I'm trying to be optimistic here, but I think 2-2 is the most likely scenario. Is saying you're going to beat the Redskins and the Bengals on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Alex, go ahead.
So I would say for the Redskins, like you said, we have to sweep them. They're probably the easiest team out of the bunch. Eagles at home, I feel like we've lost the mojo at home. I feel like our home field advantage doesn't really exist right now. In the past few years, we won most of our games last year, I think away, like in Tampa. It's been kind of troublesome to see how MetLife hasn't really had an advantage for the Giants anymore. I'm hoping that turns now with the new regimen coming into play. But I think the Eagles at home, I think we win that game just because you have to win that game. At that point in the year, right before the bye, that's a huge win to get. I don't really like the Week 11 bye. I think it's a little bit too late. Maybe like a week or two earlier would have been preferable. But then going into the Bengals, Joe Burrow's legit. And I think that he's going to use that offense pretty well. Like you guys said, a healthy A.J. Green. They have Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. And they have, what's his name? Joe Mixon. The running back. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's nasty too. He's a good running back with a terrible offensive line. And then again, their offensive line still hasn't been that good. They had Bobby Hart starting there a few years ago. So it's they haven't really been able to piece that in together just yet. And then like you guys said, Seattle's always really difficult. Do they still have Tyler Lockett?
Yes. I think Seattle? So. Yeah. They
do. Okay. So Seattle, they're always tough. Their defense wasn't the best in the world last year, but they're still, away 11th man, it's not easy to play there ever. So I'd probably say we're going 2-2 here. Seahawks are going to be really tough. And I think, away at the Redskins, Chase Young and Haskins developing, I'm worried about that game a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, they could go 0-4 in any of these 4-game segments. I do think of all the 4-game segments, this is the easiest. I think if they're going to have a 3-1 stretch, it would be this one because the Bengals and the Redskins are involved in it. And to me, those are must-win games. Now, we can say that they might lose them, but if we want any chance to go 8-8, 9-7 this year, those two games have to be won. The Redskins have to be swept. And like you said, Chase Young, that'll be the storyline going into both those games. Chase Young versus Andrew Thomas, Haskins versus Daniel Jones, Landon Collins versus the New York Giants. There'll be a lot of storylines in those games. So I'm looking forward to it. I think the Redskins and Giants rivalry is getting back to the way it used to be back in the 90s. I think there's some hatred growing between those two fan bases. And I think probably if Haskins pans out, which a lot of people are already on the fence is saying that he sucks. I'm not ready to say that yet. I'm not. I think.
Yeah, you can't say it.
Yeah, I think Jones is more advanced. But if Haskins pans out for them and he's even an average quarterback, I think the Giants and Redskins are going to be atop this division within 2 or 3 years. I think both teams are trending in the right direction. Just my opinion. I think the Eagles are trending in the wrong direction, but I still think they've got another year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years of still being good. So I'm looking forward to the Giants-Redskins rivalry this year. In terms of the Eagles, again, I can't, like I said on the road, it's the same at home. I have no confidence that we could beat that team until we do it. We always find ways to beat the team, but the fact that it's at home, it's not a Thursday night, it gives us a better opportunity to win. The Bengals game
Yep.
off the bye.
We should win that.
We got to win the game. You got 2 weeks to prepare in Cincinnati. I recognize that Joe Burrow could bring some excitement. They have weapons on the offense, but you got 2 weeks to prepare for who I think is a crummy Bengals team. Now they're getting back their first-round pick from last year. I can't remember his name, the offensive lineman.
Jonah Williams.
They're getting him back.
Good player.
Yeah, he's nasty.
Yeah, I liked him last year for the Giants if he ever fell to 17. But, you know, I don't know. I don't believe in the Bengals. I still think they're a 4 or 5 win team this year with a rookie quarterback. And that's a game you got to win coming up a bye. The Seattle game, Mike stole my thunder there. It is what it is. But but as far as if there's people at that stadium, that's going to be near impossible to win. If there's not people in the stadium, it's still going to be near impossible to win because, like you guys said, Russell Wilson, as long as he's the quarterback of that football team,
he's insane.
They're tough to beat. You know, and I'm with what Mike said. Every year I'm ready to jump off the bandwagon with the Seahawks. I say they're overrated. They're not making the playoffs, and every year
Wilson carries them.
They continue to do it, and they always change their identity. Now they've become this super heavy run team. I think they led the league in
Carson's a beast.
Yeah, Carson's a beast. And,
7th round pick.
Yeah, and they've made Wilson even more efficient because of it. So I don't. That's our second or third toughest game on the schedule. I don't think we're winning that game. If we're gonna have a 3-game winning streak this year, it'll be those 3 games before. It'll be the Redskins, the Eagles, and the Bengals. I don't think they'll probably go 2-2, like I said in some of the others. But I think 3-1 is possible over that 4-game stretch.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I would hope so. I would really hope so because we're gonna need it going into the next 4.
Oh, all right. Let's start. Let's let you start there over the last 4.
All right. Well, we have the Arizona Cardinals week 14, then the Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens and Dallas Cowboys. That is a tough 4-game stretch to end the season. 3 of them are at home. So that's the good news. The bad news is we lost to Arizona last year and we got crushed by them. And they're on the rise. You know, Kyler Murray is legit. They got Isaiah Simmons in the draft. They're going to be a good team, a very good team. So, you know, we have to watch out for Arizona. Don't write them off because they're legit. They're going to put up a good fight. And then you have the Cleveland Browns and OBJ's coming to MetLife. That's going to be the big news of the day. Pretty much probably the whole week following up to it. And you know he has that circled on his calendar. He wants to wreck us. You know, he wants to rub it in Maris' face and Gettleman's face. It's going to be a bloodbath, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a shootout on offense. And then the Ravens, I mean, you can't stop Lamar Jackson. The guy's an absolute beast. I think we're going to get smoked away at Baltimore. There's no way we're coming out of there with a win. You know, knock on wood. I hope I'm wrong. And then you have Dallas to end the season. So if there's any hopes of a playoff, you know, push at that point, we have to beat Arizona. We probably have to beat the Browns. You know, we're probably going to lose to the Ravens. And then you have Dallas and, you know, hoping that Dallas, our best bet is that Dallas is in the playoffs and they're sitting their starters. And we get a free win out of it. That's our best bet.
I agree with that. Unfortunately, I think our only bet to make the playoffs this year, based on our schedules, is the division. So in my opinion, and I think
it's also true.
Our best opportunity to make the playoffs is going to be playing for the division that week against the Cowboys. Not saying
is there an extra wild card team this year? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, there's 7. But
okay.
I don't know. I think 8-8 is our ceiling, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Being realistically speaking, and maybe 8-8 could get you in with tiebreakers as a wild card. But I think 8-8 or 9-7 could win this division too. So that's where it gets interesting because I don't strongly believe in any of these teams. I think the Cowboys could be, but the Cowboys play a really challenging schedule like we do. Mike, go ahead.
All right, so the Cardinals, I think they're legit. They're kind of like last year's Browns. They won the offseason, but I've always thought Kyler Murray was going to be a superstar. I love the guy. Isaiah Simmons on that defense. They have another great linebacker, Jordan Hicks, as well. Their offensive line got better, adding Josh Jones in the draft. That team is legit, and they beat us last year badly. I mean, Chase Edmonds had, 7 touchdowns against us last year, just running through open holes. It was disgusting to watch, honestly. So that one might be tough, but it is at home, so maybe there's a chance there. The Browns one is something to look forward to. A lot of former Giants there. I think B.J. Goodson, Tay Davis, Vernon, Odell. So there's a lot of guys there. There might be some bad blood in that
Freddie
game,
Kitchens.
but it will be fun to watch.
Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we have them, and they have a better offensive line. I love their head coach Stefanski. I think he's a really good play caller, so that's another tough game as well. Then at the Ravens, I said this about the Bengals game. I remember being at Baltimore in 2010, and that game was rough as well. They blew us out in that one. So I know Joe Flacco's gone now. It's Lamar Jackson, so that's even tougher. So kind of borderline unwinnable in my mind. So we'll see what happens there. And then finish out with the Cowboys at home. And I think 2018, the Giants played the Cowboys pretty close at home. It was like Eli Manning throwing the Engram all game. They put up like 30-something points. They lost in a high-scoring game. But I do think, once again, they can score on Dallas. And maybe if we're lucky and we're fighting for that final seventh wild card or the third wild card spot, maybe Dallas is benching their players by then. That's something to look at as well. So that's definitely a possibility if the Eagles struggle this year or something like that. So if that happens, it's a much more winnable game. But I do think, as Alex said, you have to win that Cardinals game. You have to win that Browns game, and maybe even that Dallas game if you're going to be like a legitimate playoff contender this year.
Yeah, that game you're talking about was the game where Jarwin had 3 touchdowns against us. Against the Cowboys.
Blake Jarwin.
Yeah, Blake Jarwin, 3 touchdowns.
Curtis Riley made a business decision that game, I remember.
Yeah. Alligator armed him.
Yeah.
Janoris Jenkins did too.
Yeah, he did. But go ahead.
That was a feat. Yeah.
Hey, let me get your thoughts, Anthony, on those last 4.
Well, that Cardinals game, I know we mentioned last year's matchup with them. To me, that was a real coaching blunder. I think that game should have been a lot closer, and I actually think we should have won that game. But Pat Shurmur, I remember specifically, that was one of the games where he just really messed up and coached us out of the game. So I'm hoping that with Joe Judge, that should be a close matchup, and I think it is winnable. But I do think the Cardinals are a good team, so it's going to be a tough one. But I like that it's at home, too. And then, of course, versus the Browns, I'm really excited for that. It's right around Christmas time, too. It's on December 20th. So watching Odell come back is going to be exciting. It's going to be really dramatic and a little bit annoying to read about, but it's going to be fun to watch. And then the Ravens, that's a really late season game, so the Ravens are probably going to be in playoff mode by that point, so I don't expect us to win that one at all. They're such a well-coached team with Harbaugh and obviously their offensive coordinator, whose name is slipping my mind right now. And then final game of the season against Dallas, you guys keep mentioning that maybe they'll be sitting their starters. I don't think that they would sit their starters against us regardless of whether or not they had their playoff spot. I think that they would just want to beat us and get ready for the playoffs that way, just because we're a divisional matchup, and they don't want to see us in the playoffs. I mean, anytime they see us in the playoffs, it doesn't really go well for them. We could think 2008. We could think the final game of the 2011 regular season, which was basically a playoff game, and Cruz sent them out of the playoffs there. So they don't want to see us in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to even let us get a chance of slipping in. They'll play their starters if that's the case at that point. But either way, I think it's a winnable game. It's a final game of the season. Hopefully, that would mean Daniel Jones has 2 seasons under his belt by the time that game comes around. Hopefully, the offense is clicking. We've been playing better. Maybe we picked up a couple key wins against the Browns and Cardinals, and then hosting Dallas at home in the final week of the season. I think that's a really winnable game for us. I think there's a good chance there. But overall, like I said, it's a tough schedule. But I honestly think that those final 4 games, that's our best chance of going 3-1 out of any of those 4-game stretches.
Wow, I like the optimism. As far as the Arizona game goes last year, if I remember correctly, I think it was a really rainy game, if I remember correctly. And
it was.
Yeah, and Daniel Jones really struggled in the rain last year, whether it was against the Cardinals, whether it was against the Eagles, the last game of the year. That's something to look out for this year. Hopefully it gets better with the conditions, which surprised me going into that game because nobody heard of Edmonds. I think going into that game, the Cardinals had the worst running offense in football. And because of the conditions, I said Giants probably going to win this game, and they ran all over us. But that'll be interesting to get to actually see what Kyler Murray could do.
Alec Ogletree.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. But to actually get to see what Murray could do, because we didn't really get to see that last year because of the conditions, and see how they do it against our defense. I think it'll be an interesting storyline. Obviously, the whole Isaiah Simmons thing. I do think they're beatable. I do think it's a winnable game, and because they're traveling halfway across the country, I give the Giants a fair chance to win that game. I'd say maybe 45%. I don't think that it's a lock at all that Arizona will win that game. That's a game. That's one of the games where I look on the schedule, I say that's a game they have to win. If they want to make the playoffs, that's a game they have to win. And I think it's a game they could. The Browns game is the game I've been looking forward to all offseason. I just thought it'd be on primetime. Odell Beckham. I hope he has 1 catch for -1 yards and a fumble. That's what I hope happens. But realistically, I think Beckham's probably going to have a good game. I think they're going to make it a focal point to get him the football. It is later in the year, so maybe the weather conditions play into it.
They could flex it.
They could flex it. They definitely could, especially if the Browns are playing well.
The Giants.
Yeah, and hopefully the Giants. And we'll see how it plays out. But the Browns, to me, they had a great offseason. And last year, I thought the Browns were overrated. I didn't think they were making the playoffs. This year, I'm actually buying into the Browns hype a little bit. I love what they did in the offseason. They improved the offensive line dramatically. They bring in Conklin. They draft an offensive lineman in the first round. They bring in Hooper. Baker Mayfield has no excuses this year. Baker Mayfield should be in the top 5 for MVP with the team they've surrounded him with. So that's going to be a tough game. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of my same philosophy with the Cowboys, with the Browns. The Browns don't have the greatest defense, much like the Cowboys. The Giants are going to have to run the football. They're going to have to win the time of possession in both those games down the stretch. They got to win by 4 or 5 minutes, not turn the ball over, not make mistakes. I don't want to get into a shootout in those games because I don't think we'll win. I think the Browns and the Cowboys have better offenses. So I think our strength there is to try to run the ball with Barkley, keep their offense off the field. And, yeah, I agree with you guys. I think to make the playoffs, you probably got to win 3 of those last 4 games. We're not beating Baltimore unless Lamar Jackson gets to rest because they're 13-1 and they've showed up the number 1 seed. But we're not beating Baltimore. Baltimore's just too good. And then the Cowboys, the last game, yeah, much like I said the first time we play them, especially with it being at home, I think we have a chance. And I think an interesting storyline going into that game, who has the better advantage? Is it the Cowboys because they know Jason Garrett, or is it Jason Garrett because he knows the personnel of the Cowboys, both on offense and defense? I think that'll be one of the more interesting storylines when the Giants play the Cowboys this year.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's a really good question. And I think Jason Garrett knows that team like the back of his hand. He's been there for years. He knows the offense, knows the defense. He was the head coach. So it should be, I think that we should have an advantage in that sense, but their personnel is just so good. Their offense is so good, and their defense, aside from the secondary, which might be even a little underrated. Awuzie is a pretty decent corner. And we don't have a guy, I don't think, so here's my thing. Patrick Graham, we don't really know what he's going to bring yet, but we can make some assumptions based on what he did with Miami last year. He played man coverage 50% of the time, and he blitzed top 10 in the league in blitzing from the linebacker, safety positions. He blitzes a lot, but I don't know if I trust Baker in man. His man coverage is his strength, but I don't know if we can trust him against a guy like CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be tough because Baker got thrashed last year. He was playing mainly zone. But that also kind of puts him at a disadvantage now because now he doesn't have that experience playing man press coverage in the NFL. It's almost like they reverted him. They almost went backwards with him a little bit. Yeah. It's kind of I don't really know what to expect from him. I'm really hoping he blossoms and turns into a really good number 2. But next season is going to be, if he struggles, we're in for some trouble, I think.
Oh, he's to me is one of the he might be the X factor to our defense. Leonard Williams, I think, is a big X factor. But DeAndre Baker to me, I think he's going to have a good year. I actually have confidence in DeAndre Baker this year, and if he doesn't, he might be off the team. If he keeps sleeping in meetings and things like that, Joe Judge isn't going to put up with that. So if he's got to get back to what we expected going in, I do think. I could actually see Baker, and I don't think they're going to put him on Beckham. I think that they'll obviously put Bradbury on Beckham. But I think the type of corner that Baker is the type of corner that Beckham hates playing against. That physical corner. I think that's the type of corner DeAndre Baker is. And I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited about Baker this year, though. I think he's going to have a nice sophomore year.
It's a big year for Baker and Sam Beal for sure. I think this is put up or shut up time for them. I think Sam Beal's a dud. Year 3 or 4 now because he was out the first 2 years, whatever it was. So I think he's a dud as well. I wish him the best, honestly. He does have a good lanky body type and did show some flashes last year, but has to be more consistent. I'm not sure how much he'll play this year, but as for DeAndre Baker, he is the X factor. He's very important for this defense. I mean, analytics point to cornerbacks being really important in today's NFL, and especially when you play against a team like Dallas, who has all these great wide receivers, it's even more important. So I think DeAndre Baker will be better. It depends if he gets it up here. I've always said that. If he gets the playbook, I think he has the talent for it. He might be a bit handsy at times, but he's very athletic, and I do think if he understands the playbook and all that stuff and gets it in his head, I think he'll have a very, very successful second year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there on the X factor. I think he is probably the X factor of this defense. The edge rushers, I just kind of think it's going to be a group effort. I don't think there's going to be any, Fackrell, he might get 7 or 8 sacks. To me, it's the cornerback play. If this defense is going to be successful, the cornerbacks are going to have to play really well, and the interior defensive line. But I think the interior defensive line is strong. I think those units are going to have to be above average to get the pass rush home. That's what I think they plan to do.
Think about imagine if you switched the rosters, Giants and Dallas. What players would you be most afraid of if they weren't ours? I would say McKinney scares the crap out of me if he was on a different team.
Yeah.
I really like him. I think probably Jabril Peppers scares me. He's one of those guys you never know when he's going to make a play. And Leonard Williams scares me if he was on another team against us, especially if he was in Dallas. Like, I don't know why, just something about that just doesn't sound too good to me. But I wrote an article the other day about Leonard Williams and how he affects the players around him. And Dalvin Tomlinson saw his stats double after Leonard Williams, come to New York, or rather come to the Giants. So I'm intrigued to see, what he can do in the second year, because Dexter Lawrence said, like, you guys don't understand how important he is to the locker room and what he does, like how much he's helping us succeed as well. The pass rush shouldn't be specifically tailored. We shouldn't be considering just the outside linebackers in Fackrell, Ximenez, Marcus Golden. When we think of the pass rush, we should not be only considering them. The interior linemen, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, those guys should be factored in as well. And then you have to consider that Patrick Graham loves to use his linebackers and safeties. So this whole blitz scheme and everything they're going to do is going to be super diverse. And you can't, when you say pass rushers, you should throw that idea out the window. Yeah. Pass rushers only get you so far. They're going to be doing so many different things. And I think that they're going to probably scheme a pretty decent pass rush out of it. But like you said, cornerback play is essential. They need to lock down. They need to give their pass rushers time to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be a positionless defense. You can't judge a certain player based on his position. They're going to move all these guys around, specifically guys in the secondary. But go ahead, Anthony. Let me get your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, I really think it is a put up or shut up year for the other Baker, not Baker Mayfield, but DeAndre Baker. I think it's going to be really important for him. Obviously, super disappointing last year, but I thought a lot of that was because he was playing in a lot of zone coverage and off the line of scrimmage in James Betcher's defense, and it always confused me and drove me nuts because he's such a great man press coverage corner. So I think that he fits in this defense really well. Patrick Graham's defense, because like you mentioned, Alex,
he does.
He loves to play man coverage. He loves to press. That's exactly what DeAndre Baker's good at. James Bradbury too. So that should actually be a recipe for success. He just has to put up or shut up. He's got to perform. Mm-hmm. So we're really all hyping him up, saying now he should fit in this defense. He should strive and flourish in this defense. So he better do it, because if he doesn't, it's going to be tough. And like you said, if he's falling asleep in meetings, there's a good chance he's out of the door a lot sooner than expected. And I like the point that you brought up, Alex, with the pass rush, because I think the blitzes are how we're going to make a pass rush this year. It's not going to come down to any one player, and I don't even think it really is a personnel thing. I think it's just purely a scheme thing, because when you've got a defensive coordinator who blitzes on 50% of his plays, that's how you get your pass rush in. Has nothing to do with whether we sign Marcus Golden back or not. I know a lot of fans are going crazy saying sign back Marcus Golden. I think it's a marginal improvement, because I don't think it makes a huge difference, because the pressures are going to come from the blitzing and in the scheme anyway. So I don't know if one extra marginally better player is going to make a huge impact anyway. So I think the defense has a lot of potential, and because of the interior defensive line, and I think we really improved the secondary as well, and those are the two strongest units, and you could argue that those are the two most important units. So the defense is being built the right way, and in this scheme especially, if Patrick Graham can put it all together, get these players to play at their strengths, and like Joe Judge said, play to their strengths, no square pegs and round holes, this defense could really surprise a lot of people. It's just making all of this actually come true and not be just words that we're speaking. Like, let's see this performance actually come out and show true on the football field.
Right. Yeah, great points you bring up. And I had the same exact mindset when we brought in Betcher. I was excited. Betcher was coming in with a blitz-happy defense. It was a bad transition. I still don't think Betcher's a horrible defensive coordinator. He had success with Arizona, but he's a scheme guy. And if you don't have players that fit his scheme, it's not going to work. And the Giants tried
Baker
to
didn't fit it at all.
Yeah, they tried to fit square pieces into a round hole. They didn't have a roster that was translatable to Betcher's scheme. And then they tried to bring in players like Dayon Buchanan, who's way over the hill, guys that could fit his scheme, and it didn't work out. But I think we need to be patient with this defense. I do think that it's going to be really good. Maybe not this year, but I think the following year it's going to start to get really good. But I agree, it's going to be generated from the from the rest of the roster in terms of the pass rush. It's not going to be the edge rusher. It's going to be everything else around the defense. But before we close that out, I want to get your guys' final record prediction for the Giants. And for the Giants to make the playoffs, which player has to exceed expectations more so than any other? Go ahead. We'll start with Alex.
I think I'm going to go with 6-10. I think that's a step forward, specifically, when considering this schedule and how tough it is. how many good teams we play and how many teams are actually on the rise. I think 6-10 shows progress, and it shows that we stayed in games. I think a 6-10 that we lose on close scores would be ideal. Obviously, I think I want to see this team compete in the fourth quarter. We always get burned in the fourth quarter. Right out of the gate, we were getting screwed at last year, and then in the fourth quarter, we'd fall apart. I want to see this team stay consistent and fight for their head coach. So that's a big part of that. Losing is okay, but as long as we're seeing those development in the losses and we can take something away from it, it's okay because we're still rebuilding. We have to remember that. So I'm going to go 6-10, and I think the player that has to play above expectations is Leonard Williams. If they're going to be paying him that much money, he's got to step up and he has to make everyone around him better. He's got to put some sacks on the board too. You got to see some sort of production in that category. But I think for the money that we're paying him, he's got to come to play.
It's got to be a Pro Bowl effort from him this year. That's your take there. Mike, go ahead.
All right, I didn't touch on the pass rushers. I do think O'Shane Zimenez and Kyler Fackrell will each have 7+ sacks next year. A little bold prediction. I do have high expectations for those guys. As for the record, I agree. I'm going 6-10 right now. Of course, that could change based off what I see in the preseason and late signings and stuff like that. Guys get hurt. But right now I have 6-10. This is kind of a crazy one. I think the biggest guy who has to play better than we expect is Saquon Barkley, as crazy as that sounds. I know he was hurt last year, didn't play to expectation, and was a lot better his rookie year. But if the Giants are going to be successful, I keep saying this over and over again, you have this good offensive line now. You want to keep your defense off the field. You want to stay on the field if you're the offense as much as possible. If Saquon Barkley puts up this crazy 1,600-yard and 800 receiving yard type season with 15+ touchdowns, that'll bode very well for the Giants. You know what? Jason Garrett one year gave DeMarco Murray like 390-something carries. And if Saquon Barkley plays all 16 games, we could see something around 350 carries or something like that. So I think Saquon's very important. I think Evan Engram, there's an argument for that one as well. But Saquon Barkley, you have to run the ball efficiently week in and week out to compete with these really good teams and keep your defense off the field. And if they can do that, maybe they do a little better than 6-10.
Good call. And your final thoughts, Anthony. Give me your record and the player that needs to exceed expectations.
All right, I think the record, I'm in agreement with you guys. It's going to be 6-10. That's my prediction. But I don't necessarily think that the final record of the season is the most important thing for this rebuilding team. Like, of course, wins and losses, that's all that matters in football. But at the same time, when you're rebuilding, you want to pay attention to how these players are progressing so that we can plan for the long term, because that's what this really is all about. I don't think that we're a win-now team. I think that we're a slightly below average team. But I think eventually, depending on how players perform and progress through this year, we could start to become a good team. And the player that has to exceed expectations for me in order for us to make the playoffs or even have a chance of it, it's Daniel Jones. I think that's the obvious answer because the quarterback position is by far the most important in all of sports. And we've seen what second-year quarterbacks can do, like when they take that jump. Patrick Mahomes took that jump. Lamar Jackson took that jump. Baker Mayfield regressed a bit, and then what happened to them? They played even worse. So it's really, really important that Daniel Jones takes that jump, and if he does, I mean, Giants fans should know better than anybody because of what we saw Eli do, that the quarterback is the player who gets you to the Super Bowl. We saw that with Eli. If Daniel Jones can, take that jump this year and play better than we expect him to, then we'll be talking about our team as a playoff team. It's all predicated on how our quarterback plays, and I think he's going to have a great year, and I think he's really set up for success really well in this Jason Garrett offense. So I'm going to stay optimistic. I'm going to hope that we do better than 6-10, but just realistically, based on how tough the schedule is, because it is really tough. I think we play a potential playoff team nearly every week. It's really tough. So I'm going to keep it realistic and predict 6-10. But if Daniel Jones could step it up a notch, we could definitely see our team slip into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all your record predictions. 6-10. That's my take. 6-10, 7-9, 5-11 in that area. But I'm obviously hoping things break right. This is football. You never know. You don't even know the type of team you're going to be playing week 4. A team that our week 4 opponent.
Injuries.
Maybe a completely different team. So I never go into a season completely hopeless, but I think this is a season where you have to look for improvement in key areas. Yeah. Is the offensive line getting better? Is the secondary getting better? Did DeAndre Baker take a leap? And the most important player is Daniel Jones. I completely agree with Anthony there. Now, I definitely get the point about Saquon Barkley as well that Mike said, because to me, I've said this time and time again, if the Giants are going to make the playoffs this year, I think Saquon Barkley is going to win the MVP. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a monumental season. But I think Daniel Jones is the most important player because, like you said, you look at Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, year 2, The Eagles went in with very moderate expectations. They win the Super Bowl. And obviously Carson Wentz wasn't there for it, but he was the MVP the first 13 weeks of the year. Jared Goff took a huge step his second year. The Rams went from like a 5-win team to an 11-5 team. For the Giants to make the playoffs, for me, Daniel Jones has to perform at a Pro Bowl level. And I don't know if he's ready for that yet, especially learning a new offense, things like that. But if he were to do that, our outlook on the Giants may be completely different because we're not accustomed to seeing Daniel Jones play as top 6-7 quarterback in the league. If he was to accelerate the process quicker than we anticipate, that's when I think the Giants have the opportunity. But for him, in order to do that, Saquon Barkley has to play at an unbelievable level and take the pressure off Daniel Jones. So it's kind of one's going to help out the other. So that's my take on that.
Correct.
Yeah. But, guys, I just want to say, man, I always love working with you guys. You guys have a fantastic channel. If you guys have been watching for the hour and 4 minutes, which if you have, I really appreciate it, please go into the link in the description and subscribe to Fireside Giants. They're doing a fantastic job over there. They got a great channel. Looking forward to working with them in the future and hopefully going to some games together. We've talked about that as well. And I'll let you guys close it out, man. But thank you guys for coming on.
Absolutely. I really appreciate, Chris having us on. We love to do collaborations. It's such two awesome channels, and Chris has been developing an amazing fan base for quite a while, like 2 years now, right?
Yeah. That's
so, you've been doing an awesome job, and to watch it develop and, see it firsthand is amazing. And to be able to work with you in this space and, a space that you've already dominated pretty much is awesome. So I really appreciate you having us on and supporting us as always. It's really cool to be able to work with other, top content creators. But yeah, we want to do a cool, tailgate when this whole thing blows over, come together, hopefully get some beers going. I got some friends in the industry, so maybe we can get it sponsored by Miller Coors or something. And we can really have some fun and hopefully see a win. But, we'll talk about all the details later on and hopefully get something going. But I really appreciate it again, Chris. Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's always good to talk to you, Chris. I respect, your opinions and your work ethic. Obviously, I've talked about that many times. I think, the work you put in here is phenomenal. And then all the fans, I'm sure, respect your work ethic and stuff like that. So always good to talk to you. Hopefully we get to meet you in person, as Alex said, during the, next season or maybe the next season, 2 years from now, whenever it is. I'm looking forward to meet you guys and stuff like that. And I don't go to many football games, but I guess for you guys, I'll do that. Hopefully we have some pretty good seats as well.
I will say this about the football games. I've always said, and I love going to football games. I love the atmosphere. But of all the 4 major sports, it is the worst live sport in terms of a viewing experience. I think it's a better TV sport than the other.
Baseball's
sports.
The best.
Yeah, baseball's great. Hockey. I'm not even a hockey fan. I love going to hockey
Hockey's
games.
Fun too.
Yeah, I love going to hockey games. But Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for having us on, of course. I love your content. Love watching all your videos, tuning into the live streams, of course. Those are a lot of fun. And just really appreciate everything you do in this Giants community. I really think that you're like the best in the biz, so to speak, with your YouTube channel, man. It's incredible. Always appreciate working with you and happy that we got to collaborate again. Hopefully we do it again soon in the future. And like they said, really hope that we can all meet up to a game this year. That would be really nice. It might be an expensive plane ticket for me, but I want to make sure that I can afford it so I can be there for that. So I'll do my best to attend. And yeah, man, go Giants, and thanks again for having us on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for the nice comments. I appreciate that. Incredibly humbling, and love what you guys are doing too. I think you guys are getting guests from the Giants on your channel. I mean, that says enough about you guys. You guys are doing a great job over there. Love the podcast that you guys have, and thank you guys for coming on the channel, and looking forward to doing it again. Have a good one, guys.
Absolutely.